I like the Boxster.
Yeah.
The Boxster S is a really nice car.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Really nice car. I think it's very, very underappreciated by anyone that's never actually driven one. Because until you've driven one, I think you'd always think to yourself, oh, you're always going to be sat in it thinking it's a nice car, and then a Carrera is going to pull up next to you.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a different car. You know, the engine layout is different. It feels completely different. They drive and handle different, and some people would say better. Certainly in the case of the middle one, the Cayman, they do handle a lot better than the 911.
Really?
So, oh yeah,
Huh.
heck of a lot better.
Huh. I never would have thought that.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just there's differences to all these cars, and they're not necessarily, you know, it's not like one is a first step on the ladder, and then the next one is that, and then you know you've sold your business for $10 million, so you buy the top one. It's not like that.
Okay.
They're all different horses for courses, and a very, very good car. I do like the cars, and it's the right colour as well.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping it'd be yellow, but it's not.
Can't have a yellow Porsche unless it's like a Carrera GT or something. Then you can have a yellow Porsche.
What's going on in the shop these days? You're busy. What's coming in?
It's
what's busy
coming in
right
now?
now?
We've got 1, 2, 3 engines dismounted. We've got an old Mercedes Pagoda in at the minute, which came from the UK. It was a European car, but it was in the UK, and it came on a container, and it just had a very significant amount of pound sterling spent on it for some work on the bottom end of the engine, and it was misfiring when it came.
Oh.
So we took the valve cover off, having done the regular usual checks, spark plugs, HT leads, all that nonsense, and checked everything else there. Took the valve cover off and found that some of the valve springs weren't fitted properly. The rocker springs weren't fitted properly.
Someone didn't know what they were
And
doing.
then we did a compression test with the cover back on to find, after we found that it still wasn't running right. And there's no compression. Cylinder number 5.
Yikes.
And it's leaking, with the leakage test past the rings. So it's either not been reassembled properly or something's gone horribly wrong. And so it's a full rebuild. So that's kind of the coolest thing in it.
It sounds fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really easy engine. Straight 6, really smooth when they run well. Seen a few of them, and looking forward to get it going. Spoke to the owner. He came in on Thursday last week, and he was sort of excited to see the progress and see the engine out and where we're getting with it. So yeah, and actually, you know, parts for that is really easy.
Wow, well, that's good. That's
Not
good.
here.
Yeah.
We don't get them locally,
But you can get them.
but we can get them in.
Yeah.
So
Nice. Is otherwise it just is there anything special going on this time of year? Is this just people? I mean, people really aren't using air conditioning, right?
well, look, usually, and it's weird. It's sort of it's conspicuous in its absence, kind of the rain.
I know this is usually that time of year where you get all the water issues.
Yeah, like this morning it was kind of.
I was looking out and going, "Oh,
cloudy.
is this going to be the day? Is this going to be the day?"
That fizzled away.
Yeah.
So I think we're maybe in the next couple of weeks. Certainly, I would expect it this month, but no rain in January, which is the first time in maybe 8 years, 9 years I've been here.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of weird to not have rain.
Yeah. Because usually that's the issues we're getting.
Right. All the wiring stuff.
Yeah, we're getting water in cars and you know, some roofs leaking, windscreens leaking. We had a Range Rover in Sunday, and the owner had bought an A-pillar trim, so they got these really nice looking but really cheaply made gloss black trims on the outside of the A-pillar and either side of the windscreen, front windscreen, and they break and crack.
Of course they do.
Now, this one, once we got it off, was held on, or it seemed to have been held on by a load of silicon. So we're pulling it off and it shattered into 1,000. Now they break anyway, but this was awful. So what had happened is in its short 5 years that it's been on the road, the windscreen has been changed at least once. And whoever did it decided to unload a full tube of silicon, it would seem, on one side. And when they pressed obviously the screen in, the silicon had gone under the trim. So then the trim, now...
That's not the way you put on a windscreen.
One of the problems was that the silicon had held, and we're pulling it to get it off, and it had broken the trim. And once we got the new trim on, the little rubber seal that makes the join is supposed to go under the lip of the screen. there was no lip of screen because it was full of silicon. So the seal was all kinked and in there. So that was a worry because obviously we don't want it to leak water. And the worst thing of those is, and what used to happen on the older, on like the LR3s, it was a problem, and the LR4s. You'd get going, and if one of the clips came loose or the rubber seal cracked slightly, the air would get forced under there so quickly that it would rip them off as you were driving down the road.
Nice.
And we don't want that.
No.
You know. So that was one of those where you think, oh, I wish it had been me that had put the windscreen in because this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
But you know.
I'm always surprised that windscreens are really just held in, at least on my vehicle, by this glue, this silicone black silicone stuff.
Almost all of them.
And that's all it is.
You know, I mean,
there's no screws, there's no brackets.
I mean, that stuff is tough, though.
Yeah. Well, I know I've had at least 3 windscreens taken out of one of my Jeeps. You know, little stone chips here and there. And the guys don't mind doing it because at least there's not a lot of extra stuff and you can do it quick. But it's like a saw.
Yeah, just like cheese wire.
Yeah, they're cutting it and they're just going around and, you know, because he says, yeah, when this stuff seals, it's done.
It's really tough. So we would get, back home, we would get a pair of work boots every 6 months. And for whatever reason, I mean, they were Dr. Martens that we'd have, so they would last for years, even doing the job we did. I mean, I used to drill holes for number plates to screw them onto the brand new cars on my toe caps. They'd just be like holes in the leather on the toe caps, and it was like, these things would last for years, but we'd get a pair every 6 months. But nobody would want the waste. So you'd kind of take the first one and then you'd have them in your toolbox or next to your toolbox, and then you've got the ones that you've had for the last 3 years still, and there's one there, and they're like, do you want new? No, I'm fine. Obviously there's some guys on the take that take them every time, but hey, we won't name names. But we'd have them, like, they'd start to break around the sole, or you know, the stitching for the sole. You'll see Doc Martens have got that sort of yellow stitching around the sole. That really suffer with the oil, and the floor cleaner was one of the big problems. We had tiled floors, so that was really quite bad for them. So they'd start to pull away, and DJ'd done it and I'd done it, and they lasted just as long, and we just filled that gap with windscreen sealer the night as we left, and the next morning put them on, no problem.
Man.
DJ actually had a Mark IV Golf, and we did a load of work to it, changed the front end for a borer front end, and did no end of work to it, but we lowered it, and one of the bushes in the rear damper failed in the bottom mount. But to get one, it was buy the whole thing and the whole set. So we just filled it with windscreen sealant. And it's probably, if the car's still driving, it's probably still going around with that. The car was really stiff anyway, so you wouldn't notice it. Just filled it with windscreen sealant and left it for 8 hours. That was it, done.
There you go, done. You see, that stuff's amazing.
Really solid stuff.
Speaking of, this is a couple days in now, but there's an article about North America and the old basic Golf, the general one, you know, the run of the mill.
They're doing the GTI now, yeah. And
they're gone. They're taking them out of the plant out of Mexico, and that's it. Your regular Golf, Volkswagen Golf in North America was the Rabbit before that, gone.
Yeah.
I thought, really? You're left with the high end stuff, the GTI and the Golf R and
I suppose you just kind of, the GTI is now, whilst it's still a special car relative to the segment it's in, it's kind of an expected level of performance and an expected level of trim. You know, VW is unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, no longer the people's car. It's become kind of a premium brand of it in its own right, and obviously it's not quite the luxury. It doesn't go for the luxury market like Audi does, but it's still become a premium brand, and it's got that. I think they kind of just accepted that. Certainly in certain parts of the world, Volkswagen is seen as well as a premium car.
Yeah. Well, I guess the general one, the basic one, no options. They say they only sold about 22,000 last year, and they were saying, well, in terms of Hondas, they sold that many Hondas in a month.
Who's going to pay probably $4,000 or $5,000 more?
Yeah.
For a basic Golf? I'm not.
Yeah.
Then I
can go grab the Honda.
And then you're going to go and get yourself an all singing, all dancing Asian one.
Yeah.
You know, that's the problem, I think. And you know, the GTI is, and the R is living on as that. It's just a shame that the basic one can't be made more basic. But there's going to be a big shift to the electric stuff anyway.
Yeah.
And there's no space for basic internal combustion engines and internal combustion engine powered vehicles now, because what's the point?
Yeah.
You know, why pollute the world for something like a 1.4 Golf? I mean, I'm a VW guy, but are you really going to do it?
Joey Woo had the powder blue Rabbit, and
that picture of that Mark 1 on there and that article is beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was kind of a sad day. I'm going to wear a black armband for that.
Yeah, it's sad, but I get it. It's definitely a good move, and it'll. I mean, the other thing is then, if people are buying, what's the extra on a GTI and an R? If people are buying the GTI and the R more than the basic one anyway, when the electric ones come out,
boom, they're already
then all of a sudden, those 20,000 that they sold is going to turn into none.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the point in producing it and transporting it? Forget about it.
Forget it. And another good one that caught my eye is Cadillac has got these sports sedans coming out, and they're going to, next week or so, they're going to really